Now, this is very fun. I know I've talked to everybody about the gaming magazines and how in the 90s that's how we got our news. I kind of covered how it's not really the best thing in the world. The internet's actually much better with information, but we're also very spoiled. But there's such a great window into the 90s and how shit used to work. So I'm going to cover a new magazine, a different one. This is Gamefan, Diehard Gamefan, alright? They really like Bruce Willis, so they named it after him. This magazine tried to differentiate itself by being more, they claimed, for the hardcore gamer, right? So it wasn't like silly EGM or Game Pro, it was for kids. This was for man gamers, you know? This is for the hardcore, the guys who were really missing sleep and their thumbs were bleeding and all that good shit. What that actually translated to was that they used all the hyperboles that the internet was going to use eventually. So they were pretty much an early version of the internet. When you read these guys, there's no gray area. Either a game is a blessing from God and they want to invite all the people who made the game over their place, or the game was made by a studio filled with multiple Hitlers. Now on the cover, this is Vector Man. Now he was the spokesperson originally for a system called Vectrex. Vectrex. This is a picture of a game for the 32X called Colibri. It's one of the only games I know where you play as a hummingbird, and it was for the 32X, so you know it was good, you know it was great, and you know that it has a legacy now, because it's on one of the best systems ever made. Here's what's great too, and we'll get over, I know where the page is in this now. To be honest, I have not looked through this magazine in years, so I don't really know what to expect. We're going to go through, we're going to be surprised. I mean, I remember these things vaguely, but I do remember this particular page right here. If you can't tell, that is a CG version of Locke from Final Fantasy VI. They showed these, I'll get into it more. They showed a demo of Final Fantasy, what they said was going to be Final Fantasy VII. They used Final Fantasy VI characters. It was exciting, it was interesting, and it was for the Nintendo 64. Huge editorial. Oh man. This editorial talks about how somebody had slipped a bunch of racial slurs into one of their articles in a previous issue. It was a huge scandal. Obviously, it did not put them out of business. Virtual Highlight, this was an incredible game for the Saturn. It ran at a smooth 2 frames per second. That's how amazing it is. I know, you would think, oh, a game that looks that good, it's got 4 walls, a guy, 2D guy. Yeah, that'd have to, 1 frame at best, half a frame a second. No, 2 frames. This is Gex. He was a lizard. He was originally on the 3DO until he was downgraded for the Saturn and PlayStation. Reader's Top 10. We'll get into more of this. They talk about Killer Instinct for the Ultra 64. The Ultra 64 was obviously Nintendo's next system after the Nintendo 64. We got the Atari Jaguar. As we all know, this is the best system. All right, this is how they did reviews. All right. Now look at how many words are on these pages. That's a lot of fucking words. Those are tiny words. It's so hard to read these. I mean, I'm old, you know, my eyes, they're not what they used to be, but I mean, come on. They are really generous with games. Game of the month was Yoshi's Island. They loved that game. Here, it's rated right here, actually. It's got a 100. They gave it a 100. That's impressive. Another 100 and some ass fuck gave it a 99. So he was like, yeah, I'm not going to give it the extra point. Why? Now, here's something interesting. They review Mortal Kombat 3 for the PlayStation. Give it good scores. Mortal Kombat 3 for the Genesis. They show the same picture. It's the same picture. This game is called Jumping Flash. Now, if you know, maybe you've heard, Sony is thinking about making a VR headset for their PlayStation 4. Odds are, I'm pretty sure this is going to be their killer app. Jumping Flash is probably why they're making a VR headset, so they can finally make a real virtual reality version of Jumping Flash. That, if anything, honestly, Uncharted, that can kiss my ass. This is the game that you want to play in 3D. All right. Street Fighter, the movie, the game. They thought that let's make a movie about the game. Street Fighter. It was popular. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know. Then they decided to make a video game based on that movie. So it was really meta. Now, I played this game. All right, I did. It was actually not too bad. What I remember was a really weird music video when you beat the game. Go online, go to Street Fighter, go to YouTube, Street Fighter the movie, the game for the Saturn, end credit video, music video maybe, if you want to see just a great, fantastic 90s video of a guy whose first language is not English, singing in English. Dracula X for the Super Nintendo. I'll get into more about that. It's a watered down version of the Turbo Duo. Street Fighter for the Game Boy. Your mom, she knows. If you want all your games ruined, the game ruined for you, if you want no reason to go through the game, they show you the endings, all the endings of Street Fighter Alpha, so you can see the endings. This way, you don't have to have fun with your game. You can just look at this on this page and get it all ruined for you. See more jumping flash. All right, now, yes, it sounds like that you would play like a guy who jumps and he's wearing like maybe a trench coat and he's not wearing any clothes under the trench coat. So when he jumps, you see him, you see the balls hanging, you see everything. He's flashing you. So jumping flash, but no, you play as a robot rat. Wipeout, futuristic racing game. Fun fact, they had a version of Wipeout in one of the 90s best films called Hackers. Obviously we know that. I mean, when you think about great movies, you got The Godfather and you got Hackers. Discworld had Eric Idle in it. Eric Idle, of course, being the voice of Wreck-Gar in the Transformers in 1986 movie. His biggest role, everybody knows. Nice spread of Rayman. Alright. There's some colors. I'll admit, a few colors. Rayman was in a major accident when he was younger. He lost all of his limbs and was replaced with magical hands and feet that follow him around. And he uses that to kill people. This is more in-depth of Street Fighter, the movie, if you want to see. You know, I always found this strange. It's not because I'm a pervert or anything like that, but Cammy in the movie was played by Kylie Minogue, right? So she was in the movie. Now in the movie she wore pants. That makes sense. That's sensible. You wear pants if you're in the military. You do shit like that. Alright, for some reason in the game they wanted her, I guess, to look more like the Cammy from the old Street Fighter game. So they took the pants off and she's just wearing the leotard again. So I'm sure pervy teens were happy to see that. Advertisement for Chrono Trigger. Alright, I'll do an episode about Chrono Trigger one day. It is a game called Killing Time. This is a shitty game. D, also known as D's Diner, early kind of CG FMV game. Primal Rage for the 3DO. Alright, now I'm disappointed because Primal Rage has a bunch of dinosaurs, right? The game was shit though, unfortunately. The home versions were shit. The arcade version was, at least it looked really nice. Home versions never caught that magic, but I really thought it would be something more. I really thought they'd make a bunch of sequels, and they didn't. They thought to themselves, we're not interested in it. Jaguar's domain. This is Jaguar is what we're talking about. Alright, Jaguar, Dragon's Lair for the Jaguar, because if you were not tired from the 57,000 releases of Dragon's Lair before this version, you could finally buy a system with no other games and play this. Now this is Virtual Fighter for 32X. Now the Saturn had come out before this game came out. Saturn had a version of Virtual Fighter that visually was better than this. But Sega assured us that the 32X was just almost as good as the Saturn. So even though this game came out way later and looked worse than the original Saturn when the Saturn was getting Virtual Fighter 2 already, here's Cold. This is the one where you play as the hummingbird. Alright, and I know we all had that dream. Who doesn't wake up? You wake up in the morning, right? You go into work, you go into school. The one thing that keeps you going during the day is, can I one day be a hummingbird? Alright, here we go. Final Fantasy VII for the Ultra 64. That's right. It's supposed to come out for the system. It came out after the Nintendo 64. Ultra 64, and what we have here is we have Terra from Final Fantasy VI, Locke, kind of Celeste. Doesn't really look that much like Celeste. They describe how there's a Bahamut summon, which is one of the greatest things they've ever seen in their lives, which is really wonderful. I know I would love to have been there in Nintendo's office when Squaresoft called them up and said, fuck you guys. Shining Wisdom, it's a Zelda clone that was, it licked more balls than Zelda. Blossom, it was a shooter. Again, these people were just like EGM. People put guns through their heads. They said that, look, if you don't say that shooters is the most great, awesome genre, that, you know, our games last an hour, okay? Just tell them it's good. Here's Yoshi's Island. It's got a whole bunch of shit going on. They used like crayon style graphics. They put the Super FX chip in here. What they did was that they studied what sound would drive people most insane, and they gave that to Baby Mario. Whenever he got knocked off, whenever he got hit, he would fall off. He'd start screaming at you. And it's scientifically proven. A baby's cry is bullshit. And nobody likes that. It's meant for you to say, what can I do to make this noise stop? So they thought, how are we going to motivate gamers to not let the baby die? Dracula X. This Dracula X, it's not a bad game, but it is a conversion of a Turbo Duo game that never came out to America. Well, it came out eventually, but they took out a whole bunch of things. They thought, well, Super Nintendo gamers don't want multiple paths. They don't want to play as a little girl who shoots animals. That doesn't make any sense. We all want to shoot. We all want to play as a little girl. We all want to shoot animals. Secret of Evermore. This Secret of Evermore is a game. A company in America, a Square Enix company, made a game, and they basically took the mechanics of Secret of Mana, and then what they did was they took a pig, all right, and they let the pig eat the game mechanics. The pig digested the mechanics. The pig then excreted the mechanics out of its ass, and they used those mechanics to make Secret of Evermore. Secret of Mana was so good that this game was still playable, even through all that, but did not live up to Secret of Mana. Plus the music, instead of getting this nice, orchestrated, very realistic sounding music, they thought, well, let's do something like this. Here is Vector Man. They realized they made the game, and they realized people were going to have fun playing it and exploring the levels and trying to kill everything. They decided to put a really restrictive time limit, so that if you were having fun too long, and too long being like a minute and a half, you would die. So it was a fine game if you don't like to play it for very long. Oh my gosh, look at this fucking art. They have these guys, they do art, they think this is going to appeal to all the great hardcore gamers, I guess, and they devoted a whole section to sports. This is look. This is the sports section. This is what I did every issue. Nobody gives a shit about the sports section. You're a hardcore gamer magazine. Why would you give an entire section? Just leave it out. Kabuki Clash is a shitty fighting game from the Neo Geo. I don't actually know if it's a shitty game from the Neo Geo. All I know is that the Neo Geo had 4,600 fighting games every month, and this one just kind of fell to the wayside. WrestleMania, digitized big fat guy. That's what you could play as. That was what everybody wanted in the 90s. It was still called WWF before they were sued by a bunch of panda bears to change it to WWE. Here's Resident Evil. This is really funny. This is like an early version of the snake, which is obviously a turd with a mouth at the end. Here you go. Anime butt, if you need to see some anime butt. There's a lot of ads they always put at the end of these magazines where you could order stuff. Funny thing about this is actually sponsored by the magazine. This is Diehard Gamers Club. They sold music CDs, which I purchased using CODs, cash on delivery. And what I didn't know was that I was buying bootleg CDs. Those motherfuckers sold bootleg shit. Interview with Mortal Kombat is one of the greatest movies ever made. First pictures of Super Mario RPG. Everybody liked that. Letters, they always have letters. People will call in. I didn't do this. Whoever I got this magazine from was like doing a project maybe for school. I don't know. They wanted the 3 for fucking Mortal Kombat 3. And so they cut it out. So now, I don't know. This is like Eat Boy. Eat Boy. But then there's something else here. I don't know what it is. Because this kid, whoever it was, look at that. How am I so... Look. Alright, I don't know what it is now. Eat Boy will just haunt my mind forever. It's a guy. He was voiced by John Goodman in the Transformers movie. But he's green, and he's got a beard. So he's a robot that has a beard. Hound is his name. He smoked a cigar in the movie. They didn't give that to kids because kids don't understand cigars. You know, when you're an adult and you know you're a man and woman love each other, they share a cigar, right? This Gamefan, this issue, it's not a bad issue actually as far as Gamefan goes. I recommend it. Don't lose sleep over because it's a magazine. It's not a damn game. All right, guys, have a good night.